Welcome, truth seekers and star chasers, to Secrets Behind the Stars, your nightly rendezvous with the stories that flicker between fantasy and reality. Before we begin, a brief note: what follows is a dramatized, speculative narration inspired by public personas and fan chatter, crafted purely for entertainment. We honor and respect Barış Baktas and Yağmur Yüksel, and we're not asserting facts about their private lives. Now, if you're ready to travel with us into the twilight where whispers turn into legends, tap subscribe, ring the bell, and join the circle that listens for the heartbeat beneath the headlines. It was supposed to be the golden evening that sealed a season of triumphs. The city had dressed itself in 1,000 lights, and behind velvet ropes and crystal glass, a celebration shimmered into existence. The bash was for Yağmur Yüksel, a birthday imagined as a glowing dream. Music like silk in the air, laughter floating over a sea of sequins, an atmosphere so enchanted it could have been bottled and sold as a memory. Photographers' flashes crackled like distant lightning, catching smiles that looked like promises and glances that felt like confessions. Every table held its own constellation of stars, but every compass in the room seemed to swivel toward the same magnetic presence, the quiet axis of the night where two orbits continuously aligned. Barış Baktas tried to keep to the margins, as if protecting something sweet and fragile, but gravity does not ask permission. The energy between him and Yağmur was unmistakable, a current that ran along the floorboards and found its way into every lens. She crossed the room with that calm poise of hers, a touch of mischief in her eyes. He watched and didn't watch, stepping forward, stepping back, drawn and cautious all at once. They traded glances that carried paragraphs. They gravitated toward each other with the inevitability of tides. In that glittering storm, it felt like a vow had been exchanged without a word, a private reconciliation glowing beneath the public glare. If you've been following, you know the weeks before hadn't been kind. There'd been noise, rumor swirls about tense family dinners, sharp words overheard by strangers, and that late-night scare that the blogs gnawed on with merciless teeth. Again, this is a dramatized retelling. The kind of story fans pass from one to another in the comments section, but inside that ballroom, whether truth or tale, the mood was a fragile bloom of hope. After chaos, a calm. After fracture, a rejoining. That's what the air said, even if the tongues in the room didn't dare say it aloud. Then midnight turned into morning. The music softened, the candles wavered, and the city exhaled as the night wrapped itself up. And in the quiet that followed the confetti, a chord snapped in the collective mind. By sunrise, there was no sign of them. The streets had their usual cafes, but the corner tables where they'd once been photographed were empty and staring. The phones of those who always knew suddenly didn't. Instagram, that modern pulse, went still. No after-party snapshots, no half-smudged captions, no tagged frames of friends and leftover cake. A hush fell across the grid. Calls slid into voicemail. Messages gathered dust in unread columns. It was as if the two of them had stepped between the seconds and vanished. Turkey woke to a paradox: the loudest thing in town was the silence. In a world that clocks our presence by posts and stories, their absence became a bell tolling over breakfast. Fans who danced along to every beat of the night suddenly found themselves staring into a void. Theories sprouted like weeds in the cracks, fast, unruly, sometimes beautiful, often wild. Some said this was the only possible answer to the unbearable pressure, a clean break from the constant inventory of their lives. Others imagined a plan as delicately arranged as a watchmaker's art, with Barış quietly moving the pieces to carve out a sanctuary where they could rest and reset. There were whispers of long talks by the sea, a healing far away from prying eyes, a retreat to stitch up the heart in privacy. Friends of Secrets Behind the Stars, this is where we pause and breathe. If the world had opinions about every step you took, would disappearing be weakness, or wisdom? Is escape the opposite of bravery, or sometimes its purest form? Tell me how you see it in the comments. And if you love to go deeper into the why behind the what, show us with that like and subscribe. Your passion writes our map. What tilted this story into a true mystery wasn't only the vanishing act, it was the unusual quiet from the people who usually fill the void. When disappearances flicker through the rumor mill, agents and teams are the first to step forward with tidy sentences and soothing statements. Not this time. Doors that were usually cracked open were bolted shut. Assistants defaulted to polite evasions. Confidants performed the choreography of shrug and smile, a routine that convinced no one. That silence didn't calm the waters, it sent bigger waves rolling in. And so the amateur detectives went to work. Fans, bloggers, digital sleuths who could spot the reflection of a windowsill in the back of a boomerang. Old posts were combed for clues, flight trackers refresh-clicked into oblivion, the backgrounds of friends' videos freeze-framed and compared like pieces of a grand puzzle. Then, like faint footprints on wet stone, hints began to surface. One contact tied to Yağmur's circle whispered that she never pointed home after blowing out those candles. Her driver, they said, took a route that cut away from the city glow, sliding into the kind of darkness that belongs to empty roads and sleeping villages. Meanwhile, someone else swore they saw Barış's car slipping onto the coastal road, the kind that knits the shoreline to clusters of private retreats and guarded villas where money buys silence and the horizon embraces those who need to disappear. The picture inched into focus. Two paths unfurling in parallel, neither marked on the public map, both curling away from the center of the night. But it was the whisper from the private airport that set the timeline on fire. An employee, voice disguised, name withheld, claimed a jet lifted off around 4:30 a.m., the hour for wolves and lovers, for departures that want to leave no footprints. Two passengers boarded under hoods and hush, the kind of compact movement that speaks of rehearsed discretion. Unusual protocols, the source murmured. Last minute everything. A little too clean, a little too quiet. And with that, the grand theory found its legs. Imagine it, a plan crafted by a man determined to shelter the woman he loves from the storm of noise and light. He keeps the circle small. He double-checks the route. He moves them through the thinning night to a safe horizon where the sun will rise without an audience. In this telling, remember, it's an entertainment narrative. They land somewhere the world is not invited. They have conversations without cameras, fights without headlines, laughter that doesn't echo in an algorithm. They take the time that fame always tries to steal. But every story has a shadow twin, and this one does too. Some veteran observers posited that maybe this wasn't a vacation but a necessary reset, a retreat closer to treatment than tourism. Europe has places built for souls that are overlit and overstressed, destinations with clinicians who teach quiet to those who've forgotten its sound. The speculation painted Barış as guardian and anchor, a steady presence on a fragile crossing. Again, a fable told at midnight, not a claim about their lives. Yet once imagined, you could feel the story settle under the skin, aching and gentle and entirely human. Then came the coded lullabies from the outer ring of their world. A few friends posted photos of open skies and still water, captions that said little and suggested everything. All is well, but time is needed. Patience is a kind of love. No tags. No names. Just an invisible thread drawn between the message and those who were meant to receive it. To anyone paying attention, it read like a request: they're safe, they're together, step back and let the days do their work. There was a detail almost everyone missed in the first frenzy, but it matters. Never before had these two been quiet this long at the same time. Not a soft tease, not a single accidental like, not a breadcrumb for the wolves. They both shut the door, and they did it in rhythm. Silence, in that case, isn't absence. It's a choice. It's a room you build for two and lock from the inside. Sometimes the only way to protect something tender is to wrap it in night and keep watch until morning. Of course, the rumor loom spun on. Theories bloomed in directions both bright and unsettling. A secret ceremony somewhere sunlit and sheltered, vows whispered under wind-struck trees with only waves as witnesses. Or perhaps a spiritual retreat, a pilgrimage for two people who wanted to remember why they chose this path in the first place. The city's breath held, waiting for a signal, a snapshot at an airport, a ring catching a ray of light, the shadow of a familiar profile in a window. Nothing. Just the echo of a door gently closing. Here at Secrets Behind the Stars, we learn to read the spaces between words. If you ask us what we know, we'll answer with care. We know that the quiet feels deliberate. We know that timing matters. 4:30 a.m. departures, diverging routes rejoining above the clouds. We know that people who are serious about creating a sanctuary often build it with painstaking attention to the smallest hinge. And we know this is a tale you must hold lightly, because it is spun from speculation and admiration rather than fact. What is certain is only what we can feel, the weight of a choice, the value of a pause, the possibility that love can be truest in the places we're not allowed to see. Maybe they'll surface tomorrow, smiling in soft light, posting a simple photo that says everything without saying anything. Maybe it will be longer. If they return with quiet eyes and steadier hearts, no explanation will be needed. And if they choose a path that leaves the stage behind, then perhaps the most generous thing we can do is applaud from a distance and let the curtain fall with dignity. Tell me, watchers of the in-between, what do you think lies beyond that 4:30 a.m. takeoff? A grand romantic gamble, or the brave decision to seek help where it can truly be found? Drop your take in the comments, wild, tender, skeptical, hopeful. Your thoughts turn this show into a living conversation. As always, we'll be here, listening for the faintest return signal, vigilant and respectful, narrating the quiet until it speaks. From Secrets Behind the Stars, that's where we leave tonight's dramatized tale, on the edge of a question, in the hush where the loudest truths often choose to whisper.